Hey everyone, this video is going to be a little different than most of the other videos that I'll post in that, my website is called Spreadsheets for Business, so obviously it revolves around spreadsheets, but in this case, wanted to talk a little bit about mission statements and in particular mission statements for churches. So why make a video, about something that's not spreadsheet centric, like mission statements? Well, because a lot of the spreadsheets that I make fall within a particular theme. For instance, strategic planning or cost management, performance measurement, things like that. So in order to kind of round out the theme, to put these the videos that I make and the pages that I post on spreadsheet related things like the budgets, operating budget, capital budget, financial budget. These types of things help give them posts about like the softer skills, I call them, help to put them in the context in terms of things like the mission statement, SWOT analysis, strategy formulation, and that. So anyhow, get into it here, and you probably are familiar with the term mission statement. It's pretty widely used, and you might even think that it's kind of a jive business school sort of thing, and you wouldn't be completely wrong in that respect, but there is some benefit, I think, actually potentially a lot of benefit that can come from going through the steps of creating a mission statement. And if you create an effective mission statement, that it can definitely potentially help your church to make decisions that are kind of consistent, not all over the place. So a mission statement is basically a sentence, or it can be a group of sentences, a couple of paragraphs that serve as the basis, and this is kind of my definition of a mission statement. They serve as a basis, these words, for every decision that you'll make going forward. So it can also be considered a definition for your church. What's your church about? Well, if somebody were to ask you that, instead of kind of hem on, having to sit there and think about it, hopefully your mission statement, in most instances, would basically capture that in kind of a short and sweet, memorable saying. So most for-profit businesses have a mission statement, and you might think, well, most in general, most for-profit businesses are different than a church, obviously, which is not for profit, in that their mission is to make money. But most for-profit businesses have a mission that goes above and beyond just making money. The goal for profit is done within the context of something else. Now, if that wasn't the case, there would be less people getting into businesses in low margin industries like grocery stores and building materials and other retail and things like that. I think that if there were no mission statement, that customer service, and customer service isn't always great with all for-profit businesses. We know that, but it would also suffer. So what it does is it, hopefully, if it's done right, it can get everybody on the same page. If you have an effective organizational mission statement, then you have hopefully less of a temptation for everybody within the organization to kind of consciously or subconsciously come up with their own mission statement, right? So if you've got 100 people in your organization, they each have their own mission statement, their own definition for what the company is, and then they could be working in 100 different directions. And that's a trap that you can fall into also if your organization has a mission statement, but doesn't emphasize it, or just basically goes through the exercise of making one, print, puts it on the website, maybe puts it up on the wall somewhere, and then that's that. It's not emphasized. Then you're probably going to run into the same sort of situation where people are just going to fill that vacuum and come up with their own individual missions. So the mission statement is kind of a fixed point. I use the example of a mission statement can help point your organization in the right direction, north, south, east, west, northwest, southeast, whatever. But it's later on in the strategic planning process, and when you do formulate an actual strategy, that you'll decide the roads you'll take to get there. So you might be asking yourself if your church really needs one. And I mean, the truthful answer is that no, it doesn't need one. You can still operate your church, function as a church without one. But hopefully, in some of the benefits that I kind of just outlined there, the upside of doing so, of creating a mission statement, I think is bigger than the downside from just disregarding doing it. Now, more freedom. That's my next bullet point here. And what that means is, you might think that creating a mission statement and then having it weigh in on all of your future decisions you would make for your organization or your church would give you less freedom, because every decision you might think has to fall within the context of this mission statement. That's one way of looking at it. If you turn that on its head, though, it can give you more freedom in that you're not spending time on decisions that don't fall within the context of the mission statement. Okay, it gives you direction. It gives you focus. So that's how having a mission statement might give you more freedom. It frees you up from spending time on things that aren't moving you in the direction of accomplishing your mission. So let me kind of wrap up the intro by saying, if I ran a church, we would have a mission statement. I think the exercise and kind of going through the steps, my interpretation of the steps that I would take, again, if I was constructing a mission statement for a church, but keep in mind as I go through these steps that there's no wrong way to create a mission statement, okay? If you wake up in the middle of the night and have an epiphany and you see, in the dark there, your mission statement written clear as day in front of you, and that's just it, and it's, this aha moment, then by all means, go with it. If there's no shortage of information out there on how to create a mission statement, so if these steps don't work for you, then by all means, use someone else's step-by-step program. It's fine. If I'm being realistic, honest with myself, I know this is probably not your one-stop shop for creating a church mission statement. Probably shouldn't be. You'll probably combine information from several different sources, and that's fine. That's exactly what I do whenever I'm learning something new or undertaking something. I want to get a couple different perspectives. So that's great. I hope that this video and the post, which I'll link in the comments, can at least give you a couple ideas, a couple of new perspectives on how to go about it, and can help you at least in some little way when it comes to making a mission statement for your church. So speaking of a different perspective, if I want to be upfront and authentic, which I do, I don't make these videos or write these posts to sell you anything. All of my spreadsheets available for download on my site are free. So I don't have some ulterior motive. My goal right now is to get traffic, to be honest. And how do you get traffic? Get traffic by being helpful, getting likes and subscriptions, getting page views, things like that. So that being said, I think so. I think by being authentic, that's how I can accomplish, what my goals are here in the early stages of my website and my YouTube channel. So to be completely upfront, I am not a church goer, a frequent church goer. I've been to church. I'm, have family that goes to church regularly, so I'm no stranger to it. It's obviously beyond the context of this video to get into some sort of diatribe about why I do what I do, or don't do what I do, however you want to put it. But let me just say this: I certainly respect the purpose that a church serves in a community, and I think there are a lot of positive things that take place in church and in service and outside of the service, and that. So I certainly respect what it is most churches set out to do, and so I'm not trying to do this solely for views or anything like that. So you might ask yourself, well, okay, you're not a churchgoer, then why make a video on and a whole a video on church mission statements and a whole series of posts on strategic planning for churches? And the answer is quite simply because that's what there's a demand for, and the way I looked at it, it was no different for me to make these videos and posts and for an industry that I don't frequent than it would be for me to make them for a nail salon, for instance. I've never gotten a manicure or pedicure. Don't know that I ever will, maybe, but these principles of strategic planning, kind of like I touched on earlier, for profit, not for profit, manufacturing, retail, service, what they transcend uh, industries. The particulars certainly can be a little different, between industries, but it, what the steps that I'll go through here for how I would suggest drafting a mission statement are no different than, like I said, if I were no different than what I would suggest for the restaurant down the road here, okay, or the um, retail store or whatever, or the small manufacturer. So that's why I chose to, uh, you know, chose to focus on churches. And frankly, because it got me a little bit, it is, a lot is the same, but a little bit is different than not for profit. Most of my education and experience in that comes from the for-profit arena in that, and it was an opportunity for me to think of things from a different perspective, particularly churches who might not measure everything strictly in terms of dollars and cents. So, I think it was beneficial for me to look at things from a different perspective, and if you're not completely turned away by the fact that I'm not a frequent churchgoer, perhaps you might find that my perspective as an outsider, so to speak, is beneficial for you when it comes to not just writing a mission statement for your church, but the whole strategic planning in general. Because, like I said, there's videos and the posts already exist, all but one, the financial budgeting post. But there's more videos to come on this subject. So anyhow, let's move on to kind of the steps that I would suggest in. I think these steps. Interrupt myself there. I think these steps apply whether you're starting from scratch in terms of a mission statement, or looking to freshen up. I think that it doesn't matter whether you're coming into it ice cold or kind of looking to build upon or change an existing mission statement. So the first step is good old-fashioned brainstorming, and that I think the benefit of brainstorming is that it kind of, if you do it right, it can kind of help get rid of the pretense. Okay, because if you and the other key individuals in your church are coming into this and everybody has kind of their, maybe even a rough draft of what a church mission statement should be already, those mental rough drafts might not line up and could lock things up, lock the whole process up, and make it more difficult. Brainstorming, if done right, you probably know, is supposed to kind of be a situation where any idea is allowed, even if it's silly, ridiculous, or that. It just kind of helps, hopefully, to get you open your mind up, take the blinders off, and make sure that you are looking at this task of drafting a mission statement for your church from every appropriate angle that you can. So this isn't just, well, let's flat out brainstorm a mission statement. There are different techniques that a person can use, or a group of people. Some of these techniques require a group of people in order to brainstorm, and some of them, are pretty novel. I use them in other aspects of my life when I want to really open my mind up and be open to be open and honest with myself. I'll use some of these techniques or that, and then it's simply a matter of searching for brainstorming techniques. Okay, and you're going to get a big list of several pages, goes on and on, of different techniques. There's no shortage of sites that have written on the topic, and I think it would be good before you start that to browse those and find some techniques that you might want to use. So I copied one site, or linked to one site in particular here. It just shows, it's 25 techniques on brainstorming, and and again, some of these are silly, and brainstorming is kind of a silly thing, but that's the point, is when it's silly, it can get you out of your funk, out of your tunnel vision, like I said. So definitely before you start brainstorming, I would browse and pick some of these techniques to utilize, rather than just doing traditional brainstorming, like saying, okay, everyone, what should our mission statement be, and just start rattling off ideas. It'll help you approach it, like I've said, from a couple of different angles. So from there, after you brainstormed and everybody's kind of been able to weigh in on the subject, and things have been looked at from a couple of different angles, now I would suggest start creating rough drafts. And you'll notice that is plural, not just one rough draft. I would, set a timer if you want, and just start writing them. See how many you can write, rough drafts of the mission statement. And this is just a one step removed from brainstorming, in that's fine. You're going to probably throw away all but one of these, if one. You might combine them or whatever. You don't necessarily have to use one of these, but it's like, let's take all of our brainstorming ideas about what we want included in the mission statement, or what we want it to be about, and let's start turning them into actual mission statements. So again, don't overthink this part. Get a big number of mission statements, rough drafts created. Okay, and from there, then you can start kind of sorting out what those you like, those that don't really pass muster, and the cream will start rising to the top, so to speak. So you'll probably find that your best mission statements, rough mission statements, will resonate with almost everyone. Okay, they'll give people a good feeling. They'll make people nod their head. You'll know it when you hear it. You'll know it when you read it. Okay, so narrow it down to your top few. All right, and from there, then it's time to make a decision. Now, again, like I touched on a second ago, don't need to. You can still polish it from there. Don't need to just choose one and then that's it. These were rough. You can polish from there. You can combine. You can subtract things from the mission statement. But there comes a point, of course, that you have to start to narrow it down from ideas that you came up brainstorming, to rough drafts, to fewer rough drafts, to one final mission statement. And hopefully, for the most part, you can really narrow it down and settle for what you begin to settle on will resonate with everybody, and hopefully everybody will more or less be in agreement. We're all human, so that's probably wishing for a little too much, and it might be an instance where ultimately the person with the most authority has to make a decision, and that's that. But I mean, here's the thing. So after giving it as much thought as you have, and if somebody does have to make a final decision, you'll know that hopefully you and everybody else will know that, it's after all that scrutiny and all that thought put into it that, this is a pretty good ideal for your church to live up to. This is a pretty good direction for your church. So, it 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 might not be exactly what that individual wanted to see, but it should be, after all that time and effort, it should be good. So that will be a good feeling, I'm sure, when you've settled on a mission statement. But does that mean you're finished? Well, for the time being, yeah, it probably does. But life is dynamic, situations are dynamic, things change. So just know that it probably pays to revisit this, at least briefly, maybe not in as much detail as you had this time around, but when you do your church does its annual strategic planning, to at least make sure that this is still the direction that your church wants to go. If you're heading due north, which this is not my strength, but if that's 0 degrees, maybe over the past year things have changed enough, you need to tweak that to 2 degrees. Okay? More or less the same direction, just a tiny little tweak. There's no shame in it, and it's beneficial, I think, to be dynamic, to be flexible. So for the time being, though, after going through those steps, should have a mission statement that you can be proud of and that will serve your church well. So if all that, if even after going through those steps you can't settle on something, you're just not able to accomplish what you set out to, it's fine. There's still another path you can take, and that is to look at other churches' mission statements and potentially build upon them, or they say, what is it? Imitation's sincerest form of flattery. Just to use another church's mission statement. So we'll touch on that again here shortly. Let's go briefly about why your church might not want a mission statement. So, for the sake of being thorough and addressing everyone's concerns, there might be objections that you have, thinking that this is too much trouble, I don't see the benefit, and don't think that a mission statement is for you. These are a couple of reasons that I came up with why that might be the case. The first is that it's the wrong mission for the wrong church. I'm sure that churches fall along, like most things, along a spectrum. And there are strict letter of the law churches. There are more, how do you want to put it, just flexible churches. Okay? If a more flexible church tries to have a mission that was, the same mission as the letter of the Bible church, it's probably not going to work. If conversely, if the more strict church tries to have the same mission as the more flexible church, probably not going to work. It's pointless, and it could potentially create more harm than good. So the steps I kind of went through earlier, should help you avoid a situation like that. The next reason church might not want a mission statement is because it's a facade. You probably noticed when I talked about the steps to making a mission statement that a lot of it was, talked about having a group involved, the key individuals in the church. How many individuals that is, well, it depends probably in large part on the size of your church and just the culture, the nature of your church and everything. But I can envision a scenario where if one person at the top takes it completely upon themselves to write a mission statement and says, this is it, no input from anyone else, that it could do more harm than good. Because, if they're just using the mission statement as a tool to control, to point to, I created the mission statement, but I point to the mission statement so I can make the church do X, Y, or Z. I'm deflecting it off myself, but pointing to something that I created nonetheless. So if a mission statement is used kind of as a tool of control like that, I can envision where it might be more harmful than good. The other two reasons that you might think, and these aren't, these have a little different tone than the previous two, but you might think that you're too small. And, I suppose if your church is super small, it might feel gratuitous to create a mission statement. But I would still argue that there are plenty of businesses with, fewer than 100 members, which my understanding would qualify as a pretty small church, but with fewer than 100 customers and, very small staffs that still have a mission statement. It's for the exact reasons that I outlined earlier, that, it helps give you direction, and 100 people is still a lot of people. 50 people is a lot of people, and having that mission statement would still help you have more freedom, would still help you move everybody in the same direction. And then, finally, I talked about earlier a little bit how mission statement might be viewed as a, kind of business school mumbo jumbo, too formal, too rigid or whatever. And, that is a valid concern, but I think the extent to which your mission statement is formal or informal, rigid, flexible, whatever, will depend on what the mission statement is. So by brainstorming, making rough drafts, getting a lot of input from other individuals that will be affected by the mission statement, I think that, you'll end up settling on something that'll have just the right amount of formality. So, like I mentioned, that, if you reached gridlock and you feel stuck, and even the steps that I outlined earlier are just not getting you anywhere, then you might look to other churches at their mission statements, for inspiration, to borrow them, to tweak them and make them your own. And frankly, looking at other churches' mission statements is probably a good exercise to do beforehand anyhow. Because again, it puts you a little bit in the mind of other individuals who've been in similar circumstances, and will kind of get your mindset in a mission statement setting. So I outline on the page, like I said, which will be linked down in the description, on church mission statements. Briefly, I cover 3 random mission statements that I found in states across the country, and they're all very different, and kind of touch on, from my point of view as an outsider, what I like, what I maybe would have done different, and again, that is quite simply an opinion. I'm sure these churches, hopefully their mission statements serve them well, and that's fine. They didn't make them, for Chris. They made them for their congregation, and rightfully so. So anyhow, I got 3 different ones on the website, the web page, and I picked, in preparation for this video, 3 that I'll look at kind of with a fresh perspective. I'll admit my intention was with these to look at them completely sight unseen and give my input, but what happened was I recorded this video once already, and it recorded wrong because I'm still getting the hang of recording videos. So I have seen them before. It's not I'm not completely fresh on them. So what I did here is real simple, and it's again just something, a technique that you might use. All I did was search for random state being, pick a state of course, and just search random state. I don't think Google would know what to do with that, or whatever search engine you use. So that is basically a matter of doing this, and you'll see that there's no shortage of results. Okay, we can go 10 pages deep, I bet here. Yeah, here we are. About, talks about mission statement. I guess that's a college, not a church, but anyhow, this is just one state, just little old Arkansas. You find the same thing for any state you enter. So lots of inspiration to be had out there. Okay, and plenty of people who have gone through this process before to pull, like I said, pull inspiration upon. So we look at the first one here, Arkansas church mission statement. I just pulled this at random. And this is for Arkansas Baptist Church, Fellowship Community Church. They do what you'll find a lot of churches do, not surprisingly, and reference either directly or indirectly from verses in the Bible. And their mission is to make disciples of Jesus Christ by leading people into a growing relationship by seeking, serving, and sending. So that's their mission, and then they expound on that, which I think is good since it's such a kind of short one-sentence mission statement, and uses terms that are a little up for interpretation. So they expound on what they consider seeking, serving, and sending. So the mission statement's unique in that respect, that it kind of has a expounds upon some of the terms used, and it's, like I said, I think that's neat, right? The second church is in West Virginia, and it's West Virginia Presbytery. And they also go with a simple one-sentence mission statement. You'll see that there's a wide variety, of course, in the length of mission statements. Several of them I have on my website are a paragraph, or in some cases, a couple of paragraphs. So it's up to you what suits your church best. Another individual who is kind of in the church consulting niche is his name's Aubrey Malfers, and I referenced a lot of his work, kind of putting together, particularly the posts on the soft skills in regards to church strategic planning, and he's a bigger proponent of short and to the point, memorable, I think is how he puts them, mission statements. And I think there's something to that, but if you go that direction, you're probably going to spend a little more time on it, fine-tuning it, substituting one word for another, and that sort of thing. But there is a benefit to it. It is a statement, not a mission book, a mission, treatise. It's a mission statement. So, I would still say, don't hold yourself, your feet to the fire, and it has to be a one sentence memorable mission statement. Whatever provides you direction, whatever outlines that direction, north, south, east, west, that you want to move your church, I think that's the most important thing, not the length. If that takes a couple paragraphs, then okay, maybe as time goes on, you tweak it. You can find that certain things don't contribute to pointing your church in that direction, but that's one individual, respected individual in the church consulting industry, who that's his thoughts on the matter. So anyhow, the Presbytery of West Virginia, that's dated in a pretty short one sentence mission statement, and that's the Presbytery of West Virginia is a baptized covenant people called by God to reflect Christ's love through mission, ministry, and relationships. And they, unlike the Arkansas church that we looked at, don't expound upon that. It's those terms, mission, ministry, and relationships. I think ministry and relationships is pretty straightforward in that most people would agree what that means, but if it strikes me as a bit odd, I'm sure they have their reasons, but that they would reference their mission in the mission statement. To say that they want to reflect Christ's love through their mission, but this is their mission. It's kind of circular reasoning, so there might be something I'm missing there, but I do find that a bit curious. It's not as neat, with all due respect to the West Virginia Presbyterian folks. They again emphasize they didn't make that mission for me, so the fact that it doesn't quite ring, doesn't quite resonate with me, that's perfectly fine. Now the last one here is the Native American Church of God in South Dakota, and I always have to look for it in here. It's kind of buried, which I would not recommend they do. There it is. Kind of hidden away, and I would personally have encouraged them to make it stand out, emphasize it a little more for people that might visit the site and people who are curious about what the Native American Church of God Ministries is. But in any event, their mission statement is expressing the love of God by practicing the ministry of presence, building meaningful relationships, loving without hurting, working and partnering to disciple the lost. So of the three, I know this is probably my favorite, and that probably is why I would encourage them to emphasize it a little more. I can keep looking here. There's one. Yeah, I don't think they do. No. I would make that stand out a little more. As an individual, that one resonates with me probably the most of the three. Like I said, it's pretty simple. It's one sentence, with a handful of commas, a little drawn out, a long sentence, but that's fine. I think I like personally its emphasis on relationships and just understanding. That it has kind of that theme, I think, of understanding. So I think it's very welcoming for somebody who might not be familiar with the church to read and to feel like when they got to the point, if they were interested in attending a church, that this would be, someplace they were welcome, or somebody who was going through a particularly rough time, it makes a statement of partnering to disciple the lost. Again, somebody who might be welcome there. So anyhow, that's just a little illustration of, how you can look to other churches for inspiration there. If like as I mentioned, I would recommend doing that no matter what, just again to get you kind of in the right mindset. But if you're completely stuck, again, plenty of you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's plenty of inspiration to pull from. So to kind of wrap things up here, I would be interested to know what you guys thought in the comments there. What is your church's mission currently, if it has one, and what do you like or dislike about it? Do you think it's too long? Do you wish that it included something else? What would you change about it? The internet depends on how you signed up to Google, but the internet in general is an anonymous arena, so don't feel free to be truthful. And I mean, if you're being honest, then there's nothing to be ashamed of. I don't think you shouldn't have to worry about any sort of repercussions. Here's the thing, and this is a good thing to keep in mind when you're making a mission statement for your church. If it can't stand up to a little scrutiny, if you can't back it up and say, well, this is why we emphasize this, or this is why I included this, didn't include that, then you probably didn't give it enough thought, and it's probably not as effective as it could be, if you can't stand behind it. So, the other thing then I would ask for you guys to comment upon is what do you think is essential? Related to the previous question, what do you like or dislike about your church's current mission statement, and what do you think is essential? Is it something included in your church's mission statement currently, or is it something missing? What do you think every church mission statement needs? So, a couple of things I'd love your feedback on all that. I'll leave you with the typical spiel that YouTubers close with. First of all, appreciate if you stuck with me this long. I'm not sure, I didn't have my timer going, how long the video is. I'm guessing it's approaching 40 minutes, if not more. But if you stuck with me this long, I appreciate it. Look, I got a couple more videos coming out on these topics, and if you'd like to be notified of those, you can click the bell thing, or you can subscribe. If you're just like, this was okay, I liked what Chris had to say about this, that, or the other, then a like's appreciated. For better or worse, this is the internet, and it's something of a popularity contest. So if you did see something that you liked, I would definitely appreciate, like everyone does, the like, subscription, notification bell, all that. It's a way to give a little bit of free feedback. It's a free tip. Look at it that way. So anyhow, again, appreciate your time. Thank you for watching. Take care.